My friends, have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to keep proving yourself? You explain your intentions, defend your choices, justify your dream, and hope that one more conversation will finally make someone understand you. You tell yourself that if they could only see what you see, everything would become easier. They would support you. They would believe in you. They would stop questioning your decisions. But let me ask you something. What if the greatest obstacle in your life isn't that other people doubt you? What if the real obstacle is that you've accepted their doubt as something you must constantly fight against? Most people spend years trying to convince the world that they're capable, worthy, talented, or destined for something greater. They think success begins the moment everyone else agrees with them. Yet if you look carefully at the people who truly transform their lives, you'll notice something unusual. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't collect approval like certificates. Long before the world changed its opinion, they had already changed their own. By the end of our time together, you'll understand why trying to persuade the outside world often delays the very life you're hoping to create. More importantly, you'll discover why one quiet decision within yourself carries more power than 1,000 conversations with people who cannot yet see what you already know is possible. Think about how many invisible debates happen inside your mind every day. Someone makes a careless remark, and suddenly you begin preparing an imaginary speech to defend yourself. Someone questions your goals, and hours later, you're still replaying the conversation, wishing you had said something different. Even when nobody is speaking, you're arguing with invisible critics who may not even be thinking about you anymore. Isn't that strange? The conversation ended outside, but it never ended inside, and that is where your energy goes. Many people believe they are living their lives, but in reality, they are living in reaction to everyone else's opinions. Every choice becomes a response. Every dream becomes a negotiation. Every step forward requires someone else's approval before it feels safe enough to take. Without realizing it, they hand over the authority of their future to people who were never meant to carry it. Imagine standing in front of a mirror every morning. Instead of asking whether you recognize yourself, you wait for the mirror to tell you who you are. It sounds ridiculous because that's not how mirrors work. A mirror reflects what already stands before it. Yet this is exactly how many people approach life. They expect the world to show them confidence before they allow themselves to feel confident. They expect respect before they respect themselves. They expect opportunity before they become the person prepared to receive it. The order is backwards. The outside has quietly become the judge, while the inside has become the defendant. Have you ever noticed how children dream before they learn to doubt? A child can imagine becoming an astronaut, an artist, or an inventor without immediately asking whether everyone agrees. The imagination moves first. The criticism comes later. Somewhere along the journey, many of us replace curiosity with caution. We begin measuring our potential by the reactions around us instead of the possibilities within us. Little by little, we stop asking, "What do I believe?" Instead, we ask, "What will they think?" That single shift changes everything. Because once your attention becomes trapped in other people's opinions, your inner world grows quiet. The voice that once guided you becomes harder to hear beneath the noise of comparison, expectation, and fear. Perhaps you've experienced this yourself. You felt inspired to start something new. For a brief moment, the idea felt alive. Then you imagined what your family might say. You pictured friends laughing. You worried about failing in public. Before taking the first step, you had already held an entire courtroom inside your imagination. No action had been taken. No failure had occurred. Yet your dream was already defending itself. What if the problem was never the dream? What if the problem was believing it needed permission to exist? There is something fascinating about the human mind. It often mistakes familiarity for truth. If you've spent years seeking approval, the habit begins to feel normal. You don't even notice it anymore. Every decision quietly asks the same question: will this make people accept me? But acceptance is a moving target. Convince one person, and another disagrees. Earn praise today, and tomorrow someone criticizes you for the same reason they once admired you. Build your identity on changing opinions, and your peace changes with them. That isn't freedom. It's emotional dependence wearing the disguise of responsibility. The deeper truth is that no explanation has ever permanently changed someone who has already decided how they see you. People don't simply hear your words. They filter them through their existing assumptions. Two people can witness the same event and leave with completely different stories because each interprets reality through a different lens. So why spend your life trying to control lenses you cannot even see? There comes a quiet moment in every meaningful transformation when a person realizes that the battle was never with the crowd. It was always with the silent uncertainty inside themselves. The world only seemed powerful because they had forgotten the strength of their own conviction. And perhaps that realization is the beginning of everything. It is the moment you stop asking the world to confirm your worth and begin discovering what becomes possible when your own belief no longer depends on anyone else's agreement. Sometimes the loudest prison has no walls. It is built from imagined opinions, remembered criticisms, and the endless desire to be understood by everyone. But a question remains. If you stop trying to convince the world tomorrow, who would you become instead? There is a quiet habit that shapes more lives than people realize. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't look destructive. In fact, it often disguises itself as being responsible, thoughtful, or considerate. Yet beneath the surface, it steals confidence one decision at a time. That habit is constantly asking the outside world to confirm what should have been settled within. Think about how often people wait for a sign that they're on the right path. They wait for encouragement before they begin. They wait for compliments before believing they're improving. They wait for someone to recognize their value before they allow themselves to feel valuable. At first, this seems harmless. We all appreciate support. We all enjoy being encouraged. But support becomes dangerous when it replaces self-belief instead of strengthening it. Because the moment your confidence depends on another person's response, you've handed them the keys to your emotional life. If they applaud you, you feel unstoppable. If they ignore you, you begin questioning everything. If they criticize you, you wonder whether your dream was ever realistic. Notice what happened. Nothing about your ability actually changed. Only your interpretation changed. This is why so many people remain trapped in cycles that appear to have nothing to do with success. They think they're waiting for the right opportunity, but they're really waiting for the right emotion. They believe that one day confidence will suddenly arrive, and then they'll finally move forward. But confidence has never worked that way. Confidence is rarely the beginning of action. More often, it is the result of repeated inner decisions that no one else ever sees. Imagine a river flowing toward the ocean. The river doesn't stop every few miles to ask the trees if it's moving in the correct direction. It doesn't pause because the rocks disagree with its path. It simply continues flowing according to its nature. Over time, that quiet persistence shapes valleys, moves stones, and changes entire landscapes, not because it argued, because it remained consistent. Your mind works in a surprisingly similar way. Every thought you repeatedly accept becomes like the current of that river. At first, the current seems small. One doubtful thought doesn't appear important. One fearful assumption feels insignificant. But thousands of repeated thoughts gradually carve emotional pathways that become easier and easier to follow. Eventually, you no longer choose your reactions. Your reactions choose you. Someone questions your ability, and your mind immediately returns to familiar territory. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I should wait. Those thoughts feel natural only because they've been practiced, not because they're true. The human brain loves familiarity. It often mistakes repetition for reality. If you've rehearsed self-doubt for years, certainty can actually feel uncomfortable. Confidence may seem unnatural simply because it's unfamiliar. This explains why some people sabotage themselves the moment life begins improving. A new opportunity appears, but instead of embracing it, they search for reasons it won't last. A healthy relationship enters their life, but they expect disappointment before trust has a chance to grow. Successes finally arrive, yet they spend more energy protecting themselves from losing it than enjoying what they've created. Why? Because their identity still belongs to the person they used to be. The circumstances changed. The self-image did not. And identity is incredibly powerful. You don't consistently act according to your goals. You consistently act according to who you believe you are. If deep inside you still see yourself as someone who must earn approval, you'll continue seeking it even after you've accomplished impressive things. That's why external success doesn't automatically create internal peace. Many people spend years chasing achievements, believing that the next milestone will finally silence their insecurity. I'll feel confident when I make more money. I'll believe in myself when more people respect me. I'll relax when everyone sees my value. Yet the milestone arrives, and the mind immediately creates another condition, because the problem was never the achievement. It was the identity waiting beneath it. Have you ever noticed how two people can receive the exact same criticism, yet respond completely differently? One person falls apart. The other listens calmly, keeps what is useful, and lets the rest disappear. The difference isn't intelligence. It isn't talent. It's identity. The first person unconsciously believes criticism defines them. The second understands that criticism is simply information offered through someone else's perspective. One protects an image, the other protects their peace, and peace is far more valuable. When your inner world becomes stable, the outside world loses much of its ability to control you. This doesn't mean you'll never feel hurt. It doesn't mean you'll never experience disappointment. It simply means those moments no longer decide who you are. Imagine standing on a mountain during changing weather. Clouds gather, rain begins, strong winds arrive. Yet beneath all of it, the mountain remains exactly where it has always been. Your thoughts are like the weather. Your identity is the mountain. Too many people spend their lives chasing better weather instead of becoming stronger mountains. The goal is not to eliminate every negative opinion. That will never happen. The goal is to become someone whose inner foundation remains steady, regardless of the forecast. This is where a profound shift begins. You stop asking, how do I make them believe in me? Instead, you begin asking, why am I still negotiating with myself? Because every time you seek permission from the world, you're quietly admitting that your own conviction isn't enough. And here's something most people never notice. The world often treats you the way you silently teach it to. When you constantly explain yourself, people assume your choices require defending. When you apologize for your dreams before you've even pursued them, others sense your hesitation. When you carry yourself with quiet certainty, without arrogance or the need to persuade, something remarkable happens. People begin responding to the confidence you already possess instead of the uncertainty you keep broadcasting. Not everyone, but enough. And even if they don't, it no longer changes your direction. Because for the first time, your life is no longer being built on other people's agreement. It's being built on your own quiet decision. That decision doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need applause. It only needs to be made once. And that is where real transformation begins. There comes a moment in every genuine transformation when a person realizes something so simple that it almost feels disappointing. The world was never waiting to change first. It was waiting for you. Not for a louder version of you. Not for a more impressive version of you. Not for a version that had finally collected enough approval to deserve confidence. It was waiting for the version of you who had already decided. That is the principle most people spend years overlooking. They believe life responds to effort alone. They believe that if they work harder, explain themselves more clearly, or prove themselves long enough, reality will eventually reward them. Effort has its place. Action matters. Discipline matters. But beneath all of it is something even more powerful. Decision, not the decision to try, the decision to become. There is a quiet difference between those two. When someone decides to try, they leave the door open for failure to define them. When someone decides to become, their actions begin flowing from a completely different place. Imagine a sculptor standing before a massive block of stone. Most people think the sculptor creates the statue. In truth, the sculptor simply reveals what he has already seen in his mind. Every strike of the chisel follows an image that exists before anyone else can see it. If the sculptor doubted the image every few minutes, the work would never be finished. Life asks something similar of you. Can you remain loyal to an inner picture before there is evidence to support it? That is where almost everyone turns back. They begin with excitement. They imagine a better future. They feel inspired for a few days. Then reality appears unchanged. The bank account looks the same. The relationships feel the same. The mirror reflects the same person. And they quietly conclude, but is that really true? Think about a seed buried beneath the soil. If you walked past the garden every day, you might believe nothing had changed. The ground looks exactly as it did yesterday. There are no flowers, no leaves, no visible proof. Yet beneath the surface, life is unfolding with extraordinary intelligence. Roots are forming before branches. Strength develops before beauty. The invisible work always comes first. Your inner life follows the same law. The moment you stop arguing with yourself and truly accept a new identity, something begins shifting long before anyone else notices. Your reactions become different. Your posture changes. Your inner conversations soften. You stop expecting rejection everywhere you go. You stop preparing for disappointment before anything has happened. You begin walking through life as someone who already belongs where they're going. At first, the changes are almost impossible to measure. No dramatic announcements, no fireworks. Just a growing sense of peace that wasn't there before. And strangely enough, peace becomes one of the strongest signs that you're changing. Most people think transformation feels exciting every day. It doesn't. Very often, it feels quiet. It feels ordinary. It feels like no longer needing to convince yourself every morning. You simply know. Hey, have you ever watched the sunrise? There isn't one dramatic second when darkness suddenly disappears. Light slowly replaces it, almost unnoticed. Then one moment you look around and realize everything has changed. That's how identity changes, not through one emotional high, through countless quiet moments in which you choose the same truth again and again until it becomes natural. This is why your inner conversations matter so deeply, whether you realize it or not. You are speaking to yourself all day long, sometimes with encouragement, sometimes with criticism, sometimes with fear, sometimes with hope. Those conversations become the emotional atmosphere in which your life grows. If your inner voice constantly says, I'm behind, I'm not enough, I have to prove myself, then every experience becomes evidence supporting those assumptions. But imagine replacing those conversations with something calmer. I don't need permission. My value isn't being voted on. I trust the person I'm becoming. I no longer chase approval because I already accept myself. At first, those words may feel unfamiliar. Don't mistake unfamiliarity for dishonesty. Every new identity feels unnatural until you've lived it long enough. Remember learning to ride a bicycle. Balance felt impossible. Every movement required conscious effort. Eventually, what once demanded complete attention became automatic. The same is true for self-belief. You are training your mind to return home, not to ego, not to arrogance, but to certainty. There is a profound difference. Arrogance needs an audience. Certainty does not. Arrogance wants everyone else to agree. Certainty remains peaceful even when they don't. Arrogance speaks loudly because it's afraid of silence. Certainty can remain silent because it has nothing left to prove. That is why the title of today's conversation carries such extraordinary wisdom. Stop convincing the world. Convince yourself once, not every morning, not every hour, not after every criticism. Once, make one genuine decision about who you are, then allow your actions, your thoughts, your habits, and your emotional responses to become evidence of that decision. The world may take time to catch up. Some people will misunderstand you. Others will continue seeing an older version of you because that's the version they're comfortable with. Let them. People are often slower to update their picture of you than you are to update yourself. That is perfectly normal. You are not responsible for managing someone else's perception. You are responsible for remaining faithful to your own. Because in the end, every meaningful life is built twice. First within consciousness, then within experience. The outer life eventually reflects the inner one, not instantly, not magically, but consistently over time. And once you truly understand that, you'll stop wasting precious energy trying to persuade the mirror. Instead, you'll quietly become the person the mirror has no choice but to reflect. The greatest freedom you will ever experience is the day your belief in yourself no longer depends on someone else believing first. And from that day forward, you won't be chasing validation. You'll simply be living your truth.